Finished up a couple-hour meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers. I want to thank Governor Parson and Governor Reynolds. This actually started, I think, 4 years ago. Really important that we governors of the river states work together for the common good of our people, representing best interests, not just the best interests of Nebraska, but the best interests of the state up and down the river. And so I can't say enough for Governor Reynolds' leadership and Governor Parson's leadership. Also want to thank Brigadier General Jeff Von Epps and Colonel Niemauer and Colonel Rayfield for their engagement. I will just tell you, I'll just tell you from my seat, we had very pragmatic, straightforward conversations about how important it is that we work in partnership. The work that the Corps does, they have to be successful, they have to be timely, because the waters of the river are incredibly important for all of our states. From my seat, we had very good, calling a spade. We have to get better at action plans, we have to get better at timelines. An example for Nebraska would be the 404 permitting process. We, at one point, had people thinking the state, should take that over. We're not going to, because the Corps has responded. So I look forward to further interaction. The water flow, we talked about learning from the floods, maintenance, repair, talked about how critical it is that we have water flow. Last year we came very close to having a problem with not enough water flow because almost about this time of the year last year because of ice jams. So really important that we have as much interaction, because we can help the Corps and the Corps can help us. We have to work together as partners. Turn it over to Governor Reynolds. Thank you.
First of all, thank you. Thanks, Governor Pillen. I want to just say thank you for hosting today. We appreciate that very much. We started this after the 2019 floods, where we decided it was imperative that the four governors really work together. So we looked at the Missouri River from a systematic and looked at it from a whole perspective. So we weren't building up on one side only to dump it on the other, that we worked together to really get the results that we were looking for. The conversation that we had today was much different than the conversation we had in 2019. There was a lot of frustration from the four governors, and I think that just reiterated how important it was to come together. They appreciated really the elevation that four governors can have in really making the case to Congress for additional funding through WARDA. The opportunity to have some construction funding in there with CAPS has really allowed them to do some innovation and to, most importantly, get things done in a more timely manner. I think that was one of the things we talked about over and over, that we need to be able to address the issue and then figure out a way to get it done quicker than what we've experienced in the past. We tend to study things to death instead of moving forward and getting things done. And we've seen a lot of progress since 2019 in that first meeting in the way that we're doing things. One of the things that we've done in Iowa to really collaborate with the Corps is we stood up an Office of Levee Safety so that we could implement statewide levee improvement program to, again, just to address the inadequate levee designs, the structural performances, and the operation. The state allocated $25 million that'll be through Homeland Security Emergency and Management to allocate that. We're doing a complete comprehensive study of the 900-mile levee system now, and then grants will be available to the different levee districts to get the levees where they need to be. So again, they've partnered with us in utilizing some of the resource and the expertise that they have to move forward with that. But again, I just want to thank Governor Pillen for hosting. I want to thank Governor Parson. I think we have seen a lot of progress since that first meeting, and I'll let Governor Parsons talk about that. But all in all, we appreciate them sitting down with us, the conversation that we had, and really how we can continue to build on the progress that we've seen.
Good job. Well, it's great to be here. Great to be here in Nebraska today on a beautiful day to start off with, and great to be here with two my neighboring states as governors. 4 years ago, all of us was facing a very difficult time for our states with some of the record floods that we had and the disasters that come along with that. We knew at that point things had to change. And when we first kicked this off, we had a meeting with the Corps engineers and said we can't keep doing business like we've always done it, or we're going to keep continuing to have the same problems year after year when we have these floods that are historical. And it was time to do something. It was time to make changes in that. And that's what, when the governors came together and we realized we could have a much bigger voice if we would stick together and go to Washington, D.C. and to deal with the Corps of Engineers. And I think one of the things that the other governors have already said, I think some of the things that come out of that meeting, for number one, the days of 10 and 12-year studies just to study something needs to come to an end. People in our states expect more than a 10 or 12-year study when you go through a disaster or floods and everything. They expect action, and they want to see action. And one of the things that's come out of that, where we no longer have the long studies, we have what are called short studies, where in the states now have a lot more input into it, and we can get things changed. And I think Missouri has been an example of that, where we've already had levee setbacks in less than 5 years without the studies that we've always had to go through before. But states have to step up, help with the funding, but we really need to make sure Washington, D.C. hears us loud and clear that the bureaucracy's got to get out of the way and we got to fix things in our states. And I think really that's what this meeting was today, is to make sure, one, that we have made progress and we're going to continue to make progress. But you cannot let up on what we're doing. I don't want to go back to the old days just because we haven't had a flood and we're in a drought stage for most of us in this region, so now it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. But I'm telling you, we are headed in the right direction. We just need to make sure we continue the partnerships, because what happens in every one of our states affect every one of us. Whether you're in Nebraska, whether you're in Iowa, Kansas, they affect all of us. So anything we can do to better the riverways and to make them in multiple fronts to be better, those are the things that are going to help us long term. And I think that's why we're all here today. And I will say it was a productive meeting today that we had. You know, I'm not saying the first time there wasn't frustration with all of us when we went, but I'm telling you, things are changing, and I think that's the good news of what come out of these meetings today, to make sure we continue on that path of moving our states forward, and we've got a great opportunity to do that. So thank you very much for having me here today. Thank you. Thank you, Governor, for hosting us.
Thanks, Governor Parson. Appreciate it. Well, let me say what an incredible privilege. I'm almost a year of being the 41st governor of Nebraska, and I can't thank Governor Reynolds, Governor Parson enough. They've been so incredibly gracious to me. There's a lot of things that get thrown at you in the early days, and they've been there and really appreciative. And I think that what we represent is a new way of doing business, of win-win-win all the way around, and making it best for our states, but all of us collectively together. So Governor Reynolds and I have a thing where we kind of give each other a bad time, where don't want to lose to Iowa. And
It is the
Tim
challenge
doesn't
of the
want
year.
to
I
lose, so we
know.
had the challenge. So we're going to have a little fun. So I said we have two iconic things in Nebraska that are our Dorothy Lynch salad dressing that originated from St. Paul, Nebraska, and it's an extraordinary regional, and it enhances, if you can believe it or not, it even enhances a pork chop.
All right, I
Top of
can.
salad.
I can.
And then, of course, our Runza, which is iconic in Nebraska. And so those are my payback for that last second field goal, doggone it.
Well, I'm a big Dorothy Lynch fan, so we'll just start there. It's one of my favorites. So, you know, outside of the Midwest, I didn't realize that it started in Nebraska.
Yeah.
So I learned something in the challenge that we had with each other. So thank you.
Awesome.
You could wash it down with Kool-Aid.
There you go. We'd open it up for any questions.
Question for all or any of you. Did you get any assurances from the Corps that 2011 won't be repeated, where record numbers of water was released from the dams in South Dakota, which really caused a lot of problems for us? Did you get any kind of indication that that's not going to happen again?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that there's changes been made since that time. And I would say also, no, I don't think you're going to have a repeat of 2011, because I think changes are being made. And I'll give an example. One of the levees in Missouri, which affects all of us, and why this is important to Nebraska and why it's important to Iowa, it probably changes the river level by over a foot, the levees we built in Missouri. So that's going to be the difference between breaching a levee and not breaching a levee. So those things are in place. And if we continue to build on that, you're not going to have such a catastrophe as we had before. Now, I will say, you know, I guess I'm a farm boy at heart, but I can tell you one thing: there's nobody in this room that can control the weather. and sometimes things happen. But everything we can do to prevent from what happened earlier is what we're here for today. And I do believe there's changes being made in every one of our states that'll make it better.
Is
Kim?
it called the set-asides? Is that what it is? The set-asides that are is the set-asides? So one of the things that they've done as we're working on holistically addressing the issues is to work parallel with the set-asides. So Governor Parsons has actually seen some of the money come in and start to do the work on the levees that he was talking about, and that's something that hadn't been done before. With Ditch 6 in Hamburg, we were able to work with FEMA, the Corps, and the state to maintain the elevated levee above where the emergency response guidelines are at. And so that's something different that we were able to do that puts Hamburg in a better place. But again, you know, we're experiencing drought right now, so it's a little bit of a different challenge that we're looking at. So we've talked about it. But to Governor Parsons' point, you know, Mother Nature is Mother Nature, but they're monitoring it constantly. And again, I think it just goes back to communication, making sure that we're all connected as they start to move through and make those decisions.
I would echo what Governor Reynolds said. I think that what we did commit to is enhanced communication. We can, we're not going to tell the Corps how to do their job, but we're going to be a part of the process when there's emerging times, when there's potential catastrophic times, number one. And number two, we're all going to work hard to make sure that people understand what the Corps is doing. We'll be better communicators to make sure that all of our citizens understand the Corps is working hard for the betterment of the people. Sometimes there's been a vacuum.
Did they give you a good snapshot of what the levee system is like in Nebraska, especially north of Omaha?
Yeah, no question. But we got very, very detailed presentation of the whole levee system in the lower Missouri that affects ours. And, you know, great progress is being made. And, you know, I think it's really important for all of us that the levees get completed. I think Missouri's made really good progress. And then that we have tremendous maintenance done. We have to repair and we have to maintain. We can't just repair and then hope. We have to maintain as well.
So, Governor, what do you want to tell Nebraskans who are still concerned about future flooding, and what proactive, actionable steps are being made in meeting the state today?
Yeah, well, I think that what all Nebraskans can recognize, need to know, is that we governors are together. We governors together have a stronger voice than one of us apart. And we governors together are working with all of the Corps from Portland, Oregon, all the way through St. Louis for the betterment of Nebraska and the betterment of our neighbors.
Can you talk more about actionable steps that are being taken? What physically is going to change? Can you explain that to Nebraskans?
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, number one, the permitting process. Lots of Nebraskans have been very, very frustrated. The permitting process taking years instead of months. There's been, we took a hard look at the state stepping in and doing it, but again, I don't agree in more government, less government, and the Corps has addressed it and fixed the problem, and they accept it. And we, as Governor Parson calls it, as farm boys like to call a spade a spade. We talked about issues that have to get better, and we're going to do a better job of holding them accountable and talk about it, not deal with it by osmosis.
What can you say about where we're at in terms of flood recovery here in Nebraska years later?
Well, I think that here in Nebraska, we still have some work to go, but levee repairs have been done. We need to be able to assure Nebraskans along the river that if next time that we have floods, that we have our levee systems in an approach where it's not going to be repeatable the way it was 10 years ago. So we still have work to do. There's no question about it.
How are you all incorporating current issues on the river? You mentioned that we're all in drought right now and have been for several years. How is that coming up?
Well, one of the things that we did, I talked about it, is the levee safety fund that we set up, and the state has allocated $25 million over 4 to 5 years to really do a comprehensive assessment of the levee system. I mean, a lot of these districts don't have the funding to go in and to make the improvements that they need to make, and so we want to make sure that we're looking at actual data, actual cost, so that when they apply for the grant, we know that it does qualify and that is what it will take to fix the levee. So that's an important component that we've put in place, working with the Corps. They're offering a lot of expertise and assistance throughout that process, which is a cost savings for us as well. But I think just doing that and figuring out how we're going to pay for it, what that looks like, and getting in front of it. We talked a lot about that instead of waiting for that disaster to hit like in 2019, and then we're coming in with, we have no money, it says, and then we have a bunch of money come in, and then we're fixing the same highway structures, the same agriculture impact that we did, prior to that. So we needed to get better at maintenance and get in front of it, so that we can be better prepared and be more resilient when that next, flood happens. The other thing that they mentioned in the meeting too, government is just lagging where the private sector is all the time, unfortunately. And so they did highlight where they're going to, for the first time, have their permitting process online. And so just being able to access the information more quickly, to have it be innovative and have it the technical aspect of it, then that should also help in their response to those permit requests. So all of that, I think, starts to make a difference as they look for ways to be just more innovative, more collaborative, and just doing things different. For 40 years they have done it this way, and it's really hard to get them to move. But they're starting to do that, which I think is great.
I'll just add a little bit on Kim, because you brought up the drought, and I think all of our states are facing that. We have a tendency to think of the river and we talk about it on floods.
Yeah.
But the drought is just as important. And if you look at every one of our states on the rivers, what they do for each of us. The economy, number one, we haven't even talked about what we do. That's why these meetings to me are so important too, because we got to keep the navigations of the river open. When that river level goes down and all of a sudden you got to start worried about freezing, or you start to worry about power plants. This thing just doesn't start with a flood or end with a flood. There's many things that you have to prepare for as we deal with the Corps of Engineers. So it's not just a one disaster item that we're here talking about today, and I think that's why it's so important for us governors to be on the same page, to be able to do that with the Corps of Engineers, because tomorrow there's an issue out there on the river, regardless who we are or where we are. It's not always a flood that's going to dictate what happens. So I think everything we're doing to meet that demands and understand how that port is everyday lives, whether it's Nebraska or Iowa or Missouri, that we're dealing with these things. That's why I think these meetings are so important, and us working together is so important. And one last thing I want to mention, I think Kim mentioned that, but the states, we got to do our part. We can't sit around and wait on the federal government to do things for us all the time. We know that's not a good plan. We've tried that before, and we've seen the outcome of that, and it's not a very good outcome. So we got to do our part on the local levels to help our local people in our states to be able to help with levees, to be able to do things to help them also. And again, I think that's some of the topics we have, and I thought it was a very positive meeting that we had today.
Did any actions or decisions come out of today's meeting specifically?
Well, I think a couple specific things would be that enhanced communications, not only by us three, but by our teams, so that we can operate in a much more proactive approach. As an example, we're in a second year. God forbid we have a third year of drought. The reservoirs are down, hoping for a great snow melt in the spring. But the hardcore reality is let's have conversations today about if we have extended drought and the incredible gift of water, we don't have enough of it. We got to be a part of those flow discussions and the value tree of the ramifications of that. So we just don't wake up and say, oh, that happened. We'll be proactively a part of that.
Last question. How long do you think these talks will continue? You started them 4 years ago. Is this an indefinite collaboration?
Yeah, Governor Parsons will be governor of Missouri one more year. As I told him, we will work very hard with the new governor of Missouri. This is really an important piece. We need to be incredible partners, active, engaged partners with the Corps of Engineers. And the good news is the Corps of Engineers invites it. They welcome it. They're incredible public servants. We will improve the communication and the collaboration, not only ourselves, but with our teams. Thank you all very much for being here. We appreciate it. Merry Christmas. Thank you.